Dr. Jacques Vallée once said that experiencers have something to teach us, and that their stories reveal the deeper structures of reality itself. So in this episode of Reawakening Your Stellar Memory, I sit down once again with Casey Claar, a lifelong experiencer and explorer of consciousness. And together we journey into the living architecture of time and space, from the planetary to the galactic, to understand what happens when awareness itself begins to shift. We talk about the moment before and between worlds, the space of transition that Casey calls the shift, where form dissolves into waveforms and consciousness remembers itself. We explore the idea that reality is not happening to us, but through us, and that every experience arises inside of our own field of awareness. This conversation isn't about theories or beliefs. It's about direct experience and the courage it takes to face the unknown and to move through all of the fear and to remember that nothing is outside of the self. So take a breath, sit down and listen closely, because you're about to hear a discussion that isn't just a conversation. It's a mirror of your own remembering.
A lot. You begin to be aware of a lot more. For instance, that what we call the world out there is actually occurring within our own perception. Tell me one time you or anyone out there has ever experienced anything beyond your own perception. If you just focus on that for just a moment, you'll see that you never have. Everything that you've ever experienced has been right there within you and your own perception. And when you begin to realize this, the world breaks open for you.
Casey, welcome back.
Thank you, Biba. Thank you. It's been too long.
Yeah, it has. It's interesting. Welcome back from where, though? Like, really, do you know?
It's possibly the thing, the contemplation that began taking me out of body when all of that began. It's something I've never been able to figure out. Space is easy to figure out. Time? What is it? What is that? What is the sense of self? This is another one. Where did that come from when it comes? When you go deep into a meditation, you realize you hit a depth in which the sense of yourself is very different than the sense of yourself here in 3D physical space. And that sense of self, where did that come from as you're shifting from the deeper states, from additional brainwave frequencies and patterns into the one that we use here? Like, at what point or where did that sense of self come back? Where did it arise? I never see it leave. I never see it return. I never see it arise. I can delineate the differences in the experience. But as far as that itself, where did that just come from? It's the same thing with time. Time is my high fascination. Because when I started going out of body, I began to see a very clear geometry. And it's very simple, too. It's just a horizontal and vertical axis, what looks like a plus sign. And I began to realize I could see this planar sphere, planar circumference along the horizontal axis. And began to realize that horizontal axis is space. And then the vertical axis is time. And the vertical axis are the galactic dimensions. It's dimension 6, 5, and 4. They're experiencing time-space, whereas we're experiencing space-time. And so we experience space in a greater way than we experience time, and we don't experience time itself. We experience the sensation of time, perhaps, but not time itself. When you enter time itself, when I go out of body, when I shift into an expanded state and come onto that vertical axis, have don't want to say I have the realization, because the realization isn't there, but there's a gleaning. I'm beginning to glean that I'm accessing a completely different axis. And on that axis, which is I've labeled as time, you can experience time in a very different way than what we experience here. In 3D physical space, or at least here in the earth life, we experience it in a linear format. But I can't even, did I ever experience time exactly in that way? You know, I don't think I ever did. It's like you're saying right now that at a certain point in your life experience, or even in an awakening, you begin to experience time differently. And I think that's because we're beginning to access the vertical axis. So we get to experience those 3 dimensions of space, and also 1 dimension of time, for instance, in the 4th dimension, or what, you know, we label as the 4th dimension. I just call it the beginning of galactic space. And galactic space is simply a territory where your experience playground is the galaxy, and we're not isolated or locked in on the planet anymore. So you go from planetary to galactic. And when you go from planetary to galactic, when you begin to make that shift, you begin to access the vertical axis. That's what I started gleaning that I was accessing in the out of body state. But then what is that, and how can you utilize it? How can you utilize time differently in an expanded state of consciousness, in that galactic level consciousness, than when you're in the planetary spectrum? That's what I began to explore. I think you probably, I'm sorry, I'm starting to get a frog in my throat. Let me just have a sip of something.
The galactic space frog, clearly.
I hope that makes it better. I'm being tinkered with. I think you begin to access it as well when you're doing your QHHT. Yeah,
I definitely, I just like, I really love your use of words when you're describing something that I'm aware of, because you've just opened it up even more. For those of you who are listening, Casey she's a contactee, right, Casey? And you're very much in tune with other interdimensional beings and communication and your galactic self. And I remember in the last conversation you said, when I go out of body, I have the awareness when I'm going into that space. Like some people go, oh, I'm on the ceiling or I'm at the window, but you're aware of the transition.
the fully conscious
Right?
shift was my focus. That's what I decided to make my forte. So rather than
Right.
the out of body experience itself being what I paid attention to, or particular environments in which I'd go into, I took my attention deep into the shift itself and began to observe what was contained within the shift itself. And the first thing I found that I experienced was what I simply now just call waveform. So rather than I shift from being a particular individual in a particular environment into waveform, where I'm no one in particular. And as I'm nowhere in particular, I'm realizing that I'm in multiple places all at once. My frog is coming back. I'm sorry, I don't know why. As I'm speaking, you're going all fuzzy on me.
Yeah, but I'm not really going fuzzy. It's just low res recording. But I'm
Are you
actually
going,
not really. Yeah,
are
you
you
need
going
glasses.
multidimensional?
I'm glitching.
You're
So just call me glitch.
glitch.
I remember I was downstairs. I live in an apartment and I was downstairs and I was sitting on the grass in the sun and I felt it's like I felt like it was just a glitch for a second in that space. It's like I wasn't really there, but I was glitching in. And it's almost like it's exactly to do with space or time. I don't know which one it is. I haven't gotten to where you are at all because my inquiry isn't as deep as yours, but I'm very inquisitive to know what is like my experiences are happening out of time. That's the only way I can explain my current state of being is I'm here and you can see me and I'm here, or I'm in the supermarket, or I'm in work, but actually I'm not there because I'm in a lot of different places at the same time. And then I'm just, it's like a drone. I'm just doing the things that I'm packing, the shopping, but I'm actually at the same time having a very galactic, or what I would call a multidimensional experience. And that's permanent now. That's
Mm-hmm.
just the natural. It, like last year, it was like the odd one or two things every month. You'd see the podcast you'd see, or you'd have the same conversation. You've seen a movie that's just coming out next month, but you've seen the movie that's coming out next month, and all that stuff. And now it's just, so I don't inquire about it because I don't understand it. My mind can't, but you're
Mm-hmm.
helping me understand it. And what I really like is, from the last conversation, from you putting all your awareness and focus on the transition of actually out of body experiences to now you're going into exactly the same thing, but even deeper. You're talking about the axis.
Yeah, well, I'm just beginning to see more of the content now and a bit more clarity because there's more depth perception now. So when you're having an experience, when you come back from it, there's no depth perception. It just happened. However, 10 years later, now there's some depth perception between you and that event where you can view a lot more of the content in more clarity if you choose. And the way you see it is rather interesting. But back to what you were just saying, I think it's just like this. We begin to be aware of the perception behind our personal perception, and we begin to experience the differential between the two. So when I was teaching meditation and yoga, I would give a homework assignment to students sometimes, and I would say, find a rock, place it in your hand, and look at the rock. That was it. That was their homework assignment. And so when they got back, I would ask them what it is that they saw, and the answers were always incredibly creative and very unique. But essentially, they were saying they saw the rock. And so I gave them the next phase of the homework, which was to observe themselves observing the rock. So you just step back from, so most people's attention goes out onto the field and completely off of themselves. But when you begin to include yourself in the experience that you're having, a lot, you begin to be aware of a lot more. For instance, that what we call the world out there is actually occurring within our own perception.
Yeah.
Tell me one time you or anyone out there has ever experienced anything beyond your own perception. If you just focus on that for just a moment, you'll see that you never have. Everything that you've ever experienced has been right there within you and your own perception. And when you begin to realize this, the world breaks open for you.
Yeah. Literally like
Yeah.
cracking an egg. It just opens up. And then it's about trust, isn't it? It's about trusting the information, the knowing, the sensing, the just trusting that it's okay. You're not going completely crazy.
It's just an experience,
Yeah.
and you're making an observation. This is what our world would call the scientific way of approaching it, right? You're going to have an experience and make an observation. And then you're not going to judge the observation. You're not even going to expand upon the observation. You're just going to make it and you're going to log it. You're going to write it down. You're going to embed it more deeply into your psyche, into the front of your attention.
Yeah.
So
That's
that the
very
next
important.
time, yes, it is. It is. So that the next time you have that experience, you have the recall that it has happened before. This is huge.
It's huge.
What we like to call reality is what we can put down as, what's the right word? A steady stream of experience. Right? Something that doesn't just happen once and that was just a glitch, right?
Yeah.
Something that is repeatable. So it's important to get that down in our attention, that these are repeatable experiences. That if you pay
Yeah. This is
attention, you will repeatedly experience this. And you begin to get more clear about what really is the foundation of what we call reality, and that is the self.
Yeah, exactly. And that is the self. That's reality.
We
Gosh,
ourselves are all we are experiencing. Yes.
we are
There's,
experiencing ourselves.
yes. When have you ever experienced anything else?
Never.
We think we do. We get caught up in the illusion of the world being outside ourselves, and we think we do because we cast the attention out there and let go of ourself. But you really have to do that. That's the action. You have to let go of the self to have an experience that seems to be outside of the self.
But an intelligent designer. I had an experience yesterday. I don't know if I'd call it an experience, but yesterday was very. I felt like my body was pixels all day. There was no solid, so I wasn't even sure I was here. Okay, but it wasn't. It was just a silent observation that there's a big shift. It's like an expansion of energy of my matter, and the body has become a little bit pixelated. So I just kind of was aware of that a little bit. Then I went to the mountain, and I had this beautiful, beautiful synchronicity experience where I blended in to the landscape, and we were just having a symphony of divine love together. Let's just call it that, right? I mean, it was just monumental. And then this song started playing on my phone, and I wasn't aware there was music because I was in such a state of awe and wonder. And I thought, there's a song playing on my phone. So I thought, what is that song? And it's called Tree Synthesizers, was the name of the song. I'm thinking, I mean, how magnificent is that? So I realized, then I came home and I sat on the sofa, and I was just, leisure time is very important time to just contemplate, nothing, just being with that. And I was aware that because of the situation that I had this summer, the impact of grief, right? I was thinking, what I'm feeling is grief. But yesterday I realized something. Yes, there's that. But what I'm actually feeling is this: there's an enormous expansion, and it's a little bit overwhelming, right? And that's what I'm feeling. It's not the grief. It's actually this huge expansion that's kind of, I have to be aware of my environments. I can't be in a lot of environments at the moment because the sensitivity it's just too loud. So I'm kind of just quiet. And it was such a revelation, because revelation being, yes, there's the grief and I honor that, but this isn't grief. Not everything points to that, because that's just the obvious. It's like, yes, there's that, and there's the honoring and the waves of that. But actually what I'm feeling and sensing is something the opposite to that. It's an expansion. And then I got my friend over, Niall, and I said, I need to tell you what happened, because that's my way of documenting the experience. I said, I have to solidify this. I have to say this out loud so I remember it. And I've realized, because I'm not great at writing, I haven't got that much attention to say, I'm just not a great writer. I'll write and then I'll just go and make tea and I'll forget. And then I'll come back a week later and I've forgotten. So I either record it or I'll share it with somebody. And therefore I'm like, now. And he did the same thing. He had a similar experience the same day. And so we talked it out and we brought it into this time and this space to be recognized. And then that's almost like, just acknowledgement.
The words embed deeper into the front of our attention, and the written word does also. But I wouldn't say that there's a hierarchy among the two. However, if you say it and write it, I imagine it would be even stronger than just doing one or the other. This is something I also learned how to do in the out-of-body experience. So because I would enter waveform and be able to take in data from 4 to 5 discrete fields all at the same time, that was a lot of data. So as the brainwaves started coming back into the very narrow beta bandwidth spectrum, I would pause right there in the etheric frequency version of my room and look for paper and pen. And I would do my word points, and I would just write down airplane, period, ET, period, whatever it was where I was. And whatever I wrote down there while I was in the etheric frequency bandwidth is what I made it back with, fully intact. Other things might have bled through that were connected, but those words are what embedded the most. And each of those words contained a lot of additional data. It was just those key words that I needed when I got back here to break the whole thing back open. And that allowed me to carry it in the front of my attention much longer than otherwise. So it's critical to make a log, a written log, a verbal log, a discussion with somebody. That's a log. But the more completely you log it, the more completely you will be able to, at another point in time, come back and intersect with it. And that's the past talking to the future. It's an incredible experience. The logs I had when I was going out of body like almost every day for 4 years, 2009 to 2013, that phase, that was when I had the bulk of my OBEs. Yes, they still happen, but not like that. Not where it had the wave and it wasn't stopping. There was nothing I had to do to start it, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. It's not like that anymore. Because now it's coming to a different phase, and there's additional work to do. You have to actually process everything that happened, and that's going to take me, the rest of my life. But I kind of lost my train of thought in there.
No, you were saying that when you log something and you go back and then you come back to log even further, it's like the log
Yes.
extends.
The log extends. It allows the future and the past to connect. So during that time, I video logged. YouTube had just come online. I was, sent right to. I didn't even know how to look at the camera or anything, and my face was like really super close up, and I had no idea what I was supposed to say. Like, how do you even start to give words to any of this? So I just put the go button on and look where I thought I was supposed to look and start saying something. And I did that for 4 years. Now, that was 2009 to 2013. So the me that was talking then in 2009 can talk to me now because I made those logs. That me can talk to me now and tell me things that I've forgotten, tell me things that I remember wrong now. you know can just like the me now knows, has an ability to connect with the her then. You see, and that allowed me to see something else, to cognize something else in my OBEs, and that is that I've been time traveling back to myself in time through the expanded state since I arrived here in the earth life. One of my very first OBEs that I recall, that I did not let go, happened when I was a child. I was 6, 7-ish years old. And I had gone into the expanded state, and I was standing outside of my house, looking in through my bedroom window at myself. And a presence comes up from behind me and places a hand on my shoulder. I know now that was me. a very advanced version of me, meaning advanced in age, not advanced in anything else necessarily. I had entered an expanded state sometime in my perceptual future from now, and gone back to that my 7-year-old self where she was also in the expanded state. So I'm just using the expanded state to access myself at different points in time. I never would have seen that. That never would have become apparent to me. And the reason it did was not just because I made the logs, but because I made the logs, there came to be a month period of time in which I was going into the expanded state quite a lot and doing that. And because it happened so much in the course of a single month, that caught my attention. It seems to always be how it happens with me. It needs to happen a lot to stay at the front of our attention, because the awareness is in a frequency spectrum beyond those that we use here. And so our attention isn't used to holding on to things like that. It's used to letting go of things like that to have the 3D earth life experience. So,
That's right.
getting it back is an interesting process.
That is so right. It's so used to just put it in the trash, delete, and move on. It's like a default. You have an experience, like all the experiences they don't remember.
They go to the back of the awareness, and what we call the subconscious, or just your galactic level, higher fractal consciousness, right? And it holds that information for you while you go on to have your 3D experience. However, it is happening right here. It's not possible for it to not. The only thing that became possible in the design of our Earth system is the illusion of letting go of the self in order to see the outside as distinct from the inside. So there being an outside world out there that is reality. I'm this tiny thing in it, right? Whereas the reverse is what's more actual. We are self, and I don't mean Casey. We ourselves are more than we think we are here, of course, So really, I'm just referring to consciousness. Yes. And in my experience of that is the experience or this earth life experience, but it's all happening in consciousness. There's nothing outside of. When I made that realization in the OBE, I could not have been more mind blown, even though I contemplated that for decades in meditation and through my spiritual studies. That's not an unknown concept. But when you experience it direct in first person, it's completely different. You get through every cell in your body. There's nothing out there. Nothing out there. It's all in you. Yeah. And you learn that through a threshold that is typically called the void, right? So you enter the void, and there's depths at which a consciousness can enter the void. Most can't tolerate to stay in the void for too long. They begin creating in there. And
yeah,
so
go into that a little bit. I like that.
my first experience, my most impactful experience, was one of my very initial realizations in the OBE, or continue to be the most impactful, because it's your first time experiencing it, or re-experience it, remembering it, right? And so here's another one in that same experience, in which I'm in the depths of the void, and in an experience or state that I tend to call stasis. And there's a variety of reasons that I refer to it as stasis. And one of those is because I feel like I'm accessing an ET body that I have that is in stasis and projecting here. And so sometimes I look into that and try to see what it is. But in this experience, it's a bliss experience. It's a very deep, all-encompassing state of bliss. And I could not be more thrilled to just be there and never not be there again. So I'm perfectly at peace in here. But after some time, there's this bright flash of light. And of course, you can hear your thoughts in this state coming before they're even there. Because I, in that state, am in what I call the potentiality field. That's what the void is. It's a potentiality field, and all potentials are possible. But the thought that came when I saw the flash of light was, of course, what was that? In that instant, my entire system was red. And what I came up with appeared all around me as a 3D environment. And in that experience, I realized, because I'm maintaining my focus in the shift itself again, so I can be in many places, not just the particular place that I am. so I can experience the full spectrum. I'm having a realization. I'm having the realization that we create our own reality. This is how we create our own reality. So here came the flash of light. That was another dimension of my being, let's say. And my own dimension of beings joined that conversation and said, what is that? My system was read, and what my system said, and my system is a whole lot more than me. Casey, what comprises Casey is a lot, including every cell that composes what we call our bodies, which are consciousness cells, and having experiences in and of themselves, just as we are in and of ourself, and the larger reality that a lot of people call God or the larger consciousness system or the universe or whatever it is that you want to call it, right? And that's what appeared all around me. The experience I then walked into was what I myself, in my totality, came up with.
And you're so aware of it all happening at the same time and the aspects of you joining in.
Because my focus was within the shift. My focus was on more than just the point of consciousness that I refer to as Casey. Yes, it included every cell in my body. It included dimensions of my own higher fractal consciousness. It involved a conversation. I've always realized that reality is a conversation. Some people would say it's a conversation that we're having with God. However, between our 3D personas and that, the central source of one and all is a whole lot more. There's more dimensions in between that. And yeah, it's a grand conversation, and it's creating all of what we know of as reality. And we ourselves create our own conversation. Our own conversation is what creates the reality. What we ourselves come up with, what we instantaneously think and feel when something happens, manifests as the reality all around us. And that happens on multiple dimensions. I don't mind the word dimension. I don't know why some people have a problem with the word dimension. I see everything geometrically, and so dimension makes sense to me. But I can see how some people might have a problem.
That's okay. Lots of people have problems with lots of things. I'm just trying to figure out the question I had for you. So reality is it's a conversation. Like, this is very, 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 very good. So this conversation, I was meditating. Well, I wasn't meditating. I don't call it meditating anymore. I was just there. And I was just there. And then the voice comes in and it's like, oh, it's quiet. Something like that, right? And I thought, why do you feel the need to say out loud in your mind what it is? I know it's quiet. I'm the one having the experience. So what part of me is telling me it's quiet? Or I thought, like, you don't need to, like a Jiminy Cricket, you don't need to tell me what's happening. I'm happy it's happening. I'm the one having the experience. I don't need a narrator in my mind. And the narrator could be having a bad day or a good day. And I'm thinking, I just want to be in my own experience of everything without a narrator in my mind. So when the light shines up, part of you said, what's that? There's something that wants to decode everything. There's like this, it's like a database system. It's like it wants to decode everything. And then there's another part that wants to just experience and be it, right?
Well, I think it's the symphony that you talked about.
Yeah, the whole lot.
Mm-hmm. We have a symphony going on down from every cell in our body through to our organs and systems of that body, to the body as a whole, which we could call our central nervous system, to our persona, who seems to be wearing all of this through this life experience, in a planetary level experience that's occurring within a galactic level experience, which is occurring within a universal level of experience, which is happening within a cosmic structure or singular structure in which all of that is happening. And it is a symphony. And I understand wanting to experience the stillness and the quiet. However, isn't that extraordinary that you were aware of the additional observation point within yourself. And we can take these as invitations also to enter that state more deeply. So rather than cut yourself off from it, okay, here's another thing I learned when I was going out of body. Focusing on the shift itself, moving into waveform is also moving into experiencing yourself as fast sound vibration. And I realized that in the morning when I'm here in California, and in California, the lawn care is extensive and everybody has those leaf blowers. And this is when I would be doing my practice. And planes flying overhead. One just reminded me by flying overhead just now. So all of these additional sounds would come in, and I instantaneously, in those 4 years that I was going out quite regularly, where something else was in charge of making something happen and increase that wave rather than myself, I instantaneously realized if I just let go of myself and connected with the sound itself, I could experience myself as fast sound vibration. And not only is that very pleasant, it takes you deeper into the shift itself, into waveform, what it is, the contents of what can be found there, a lot of which is awareness. Yeah, you just speak like I then had the awareness that I could do that. So rather than, and that it was more advantageous to myself. So I could still direct where I was going, even though the sound appeared by throwing myself right into it. And we can do this with things we fear as well. So in the OBE, one of the first fears I realized I had was doors. Of all of the things I could have gone into fear over, mine was doors. And yeah, I would shy away from them. I was very uncertain. And I'm somebody who in life cannot abide by any fear within myself. I've never been able to accept fear, but it's like, no. And so I decided I wasn't just going to open the door and go through. I was going to run myself at lightning speed right into it, which is exactly what I did. And I just popped through into, a whole nother environment. And I was like, whoa, that's super cool. I realized I could travel this way. And so anytime from then forward that I saw something that I feared, if I was in a conscious enough state, if I was solid in an OBE, I would run myself right at it, right into it, even if it was a person.
That's brilliant.
Mm-hmm. And then I had experiences where others were doing that with me. I remember a redheaded witch when I first discovered the archetype my life was based on, which is Merlin. I was in an experience of myself. My consciousness was merged with the consciousness field of that archetype. And I saw myself as this like 9-foot wizard with long white hair, long white beard, staff in hand, wearing purple robes. And at a point in that experience, there was my nemesis, a witch, the dark side, whatever you want to call it. And they just very much didn't like me. And when I saw her ramming herself right toward what I was experiencing as myself, I literally passed out. From fright, yeah. So, but at a certain point, I got good at it. I got better at it. I improved. It became the instantaneous effect. If I was afraid, I ran right at it. If I saw something running right at me, I allowed it.
Because you understood the other side.
Yeah, I understood it. Yes. Another thing that you begin to realize, rather than cutting yourself off from anything, learning to merge with it instead, is that because we are in a duality structure here, there are factions. This is a chess game. There are the dark pieces and the light pieces. So all of that is accurate. And so part of what you're remembering when you begin awakening is the role you're playing here. Which side are you on? And we often, this is the Enki and Lil, the divas and the asheras. There's different names for it in different cosmologies, but it's all a very real thing. And so you begin to see which side you're playing on. And all of this is really important to learning what you came here to learn, to give to the reality what you came here to give, which is all in understanding. It's here was my point. When some people go into fear over what we might call let's just call it the other faction, okay, is that they're going to affect us in some way, that they're going to be able to see into us, and especially those on the galactic and universal spectrums, right? Because their consciousness is so much more expanded than our own, right? However, here's the thing. It's not just that they can see you. You can see them. You can see into their plans. You can see into their networks. You can see into it all. And so don't be afraid. Go in there and get that data. You may be one of the very few who can. And then utilize that data here in our reality in a way that can improve upon the reality and the play that's unfolding, right? And it's a rush. I always wanted, when you focus on reality as data, it's an interesting thing. There's no fear in that. Yes.
No, how
Fear,
could there be?
fear comes with the body, right? And so, and your nervous system is having an experience of its own, and you do want to protect that because that's your home here, and if you lose it, you have no home here. so
Yeah.
so don't take yourself any further than you can. I'm not saying to do something that would cause you to lose the body. However, do like poke around at those edges that you seem to have and continually see what might be done to go out beyond your current edges. So just keep expanding a little more and a little more. I rush myself just because that works for me. The slow doesn't work for me. I like fast, done.
Yeah, I'm like that too. It's so fast. When I'm
Yeah.
activated, like when I'm activated for me is when I'm in the awareness, the expanded awareness. It's rapid. It's
Yeah.
like it's just instant. And just one thing I want to share about when the fear of doors. I remember when I started having experiences, and I would be in these different places, and they weren't fears, they were obstacles. I was meeting obstacles. So there was a big gate, and I needed to get into that place, but there's a gatekeeper and a gate, and I was like, and then my greater being would say, don't make eye contact. Don't make eye contact with that being, because then he'll know you're here. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was like, how do I get in? And it was like, you become the gate. So I learned how to become that, which was the obstacle. So I many times had to become the door, because when I became the door, then I was in,
Mm-hmm.
or become that being. Or if I see now, it's just automatic. These things then become, you have to work on them, and then they just kind of become automatic. It's like if I have an obstacle, I become that. And even if I'm working with people and there's an obstacle in the way, I'll just say, well, just move your consciousness into the consciousness of that and look through that size. Like, it's actually very easy to do.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to have thought to do it. You have to remember. So it's either you move through it at lightning speed, like Casey, or you just become that. And there's so many. Well, it's unlimited. The ways in which we can be and work and unfold and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
They're unlimited ways. You've got to just find one that works for you.
So here you get into a personal field and a consensus field. So in a personal field, we can do anything that we want, like become the gate. But here in 3D Earth Life, you can't effectively become the gate to get through. You're going
No.
to have to work with what that obstacle is and devise a way to get through it, and or see the intelligence of it being there so that you not at this point in time, right? One or the other. And
Yeah, like
I still don't know how to tell the difference between a personal and a consensus field. However, I will say this. I have been fully embodied in an OBE in which I could not go through things. It was solid. I don't mean I couldn't go through it, because if I attempted to, well, this is hard to word, and I still don't know how to effectively do it. I can only continue to go with the concepts of consensus and personal. So in an OBE, sometimes we're in lessons with our own higher fractal consciousness. It still is you can knock on something, but you can still go through it as well. Okay. I'm going to call that a personal field because I can do more with the field than I can when it's a consensus field, a consensually agreed upon environment in which you can and can't do certain things, right?
Yeah.
It has a rule set. And so, but I have in a few situations been cast into full embodiment. Now, I believe it was a galactic level experience. It's not 3D physical, it's 4D physical or 5D physical or 6D physical. They're still physical. It's just that what you can do with space and time is different in those and the third dimension right now in our human collective consciousness, we're accessing 3 dimensions of space, and we're utilizing those 3 dimensions of space while we're locked in here in a planetary level experience. However, when you graduate out into galactic space, dimensions 4, 5, and 6D, you begin to access, you still have the 3 dimensions of space, but you also have an additional dimension of time. We don't have that here in 3D. Again, we have the sensation of time, but we're not accessing time itself, because if we could access time itself, we would be able to do more with time. And I mean in a practical sense, meaning I could physically move from where I am right now in time to another point in time in a physical sense. I can't do that. Okay, I can't do it in a physical sense. Okay.
Yet.
But in 4D, I can.
Yeah. Well, like you might be able to if you train yourself.
Not in 3D. It's not in the rule set here. Just like ETs are not in the rule set of a planetary level experience. You're dealing with what's just on the planet. And the idea is that there's no one out there, that you're the only ones in the galaxy. And so we know the story, right? Those are the constraints of a planetary level experience. It's not meant to include the other yet, and we're not wearing nervous systems that can handle it. It's only when we begin to graduate out and make that gradient change into that extra dimension that our nervous systems, our DNA is literally rewired. Our internal network is rewired and restructured to handle that extra information in a way that we can actually embody that information. So the embodiment, it won't look like this there. It will look different, very different. Yeah, so it changes.
But let's stay there for a sec, because you jump around big concepts very easily. I just want to stay here. So we are changing. That's the whole thing, right? That's what's happening at the moment. We are readjusting to be able to have other experiences collectively, not just for the mystics or the contactees, right? For the people who have whatever got that activation within them.
People
so
are
collectively, people are seeing ETs. Like people are, like it's not written on this planet that those things can happen yet. But that's those lines are all blurred now. They're becoming blurry.
So we're at a point in the cycle that it's possible to graduate the 3rd grade that we're in now into the 4th. This is a paradigm leap because we're actually leaving the planetary level of experience and going into a galactic level. That's an entire paradigm. We're not going from 1D into 2D, which is still a planetary level experience, or into 2D into 3D, which is still a planetary level experience. We're making a leap from planetary to galactic. This is an entire paradigm shift. And again, in galactic space, we do not look like this.
Yeah, exactly.
Can we make that leap consciously and go through that gradient change, invoking the changes upon the body? Yes, we can. I feel that that's what I'm doing. That's what the Kundalini is. However, not everybody's going to ride that in the exact same way. I'm riding it within the shift itself. And so I'm seeing this wide spectrum of possibility and just aiming myself sort of at what looks most interesting to experience, and that can include what you see here altering.
So you and I have similar experiences, but they're different. Like I don't have OBEs. I had one when I was small. I had them. I used to fly, but I have inner experiences. I go into the universe inside, and I travel wherever I've been. It's always been in here, but in there is everywhere. And so I listened to a documentary. There's so many things I want to talk about, but I listened to a woman talk, and she was talking about consensus, astral consensus. And the conversation was about, let's just say Hollywood and all those MK mind control situations, and people go, well, do they know that they're part of that? And she had the most interesting thing to say, and it was kind of an original thing to say. I'd heard it a long time ago from a guy from the 60s. I think he was from the desert too, from the 60s. That actually how they get them, entrap them in to that kind of system is they will blend with their essence, and they will then alter their perceptions and their thoughts, and it's without consent. So it's darkness, really. It's like dark games. If we're it's not like somebody goes in and has mind control. It's actually it's astral. So the person wouldn't even know it's happening to them. It's happening to them in their sleep, or when they're watching a movie. The consciousness will enter in and alter certain thought forms and everything. And that's how that person then becomes like this kind of over sexualized singer. Well, before she was kind of like an innocent country singer, right? And so that's the kind of the consensus, because the consensus on this planet has been absolutely ravaged by different beings, like, and they're out of line doing that. And as far to my best of my knowledge, those guys are getting kicked out, and we're going back into some kind of neutrality where we have a chance to actually remember.
You may be shifting yourself into that, but remember, there's nothing outside the self. So although there may be a lot of people in a consensual experience that are experiencing the same thought, for instance, that something is happening to them against their will, there's not a singular reality in which that's happening, meaning there's other realities with collections of other individuals who are consensually having a different or unique thought to that.
So the only thing I can think of that's obvious to me is the jab and the whole 2 years locked into your house.
Everyone was sovereign during that period of time, and everyone in every moment is making one core key decision, and that is whether they will tell their story as sovereign or tell their story as slave or victim. And so if we're still working with making choices between what we wish to experience in order to learn more from, then yes. But again, and so like, for instance, I worked in I'm a professional medical caregiver. So I worked in the healthcare industry during all of that. We were the first affected. Everybody has to do it or you have no job, right? Okay. You can give in. You can, in fear, say, I'm going to have to do that, or I won't be able to pay my rent, or my children won't have food to eat, or you can do that. And I know that there's many situations in which it's very challenging to hold on to your sovereignty and tell your story from that perspective, live from that perspective. But that's exactly what I did. And that's how I know the choice was there. And because I chose that, the first people I came across wouldn't hire anybody who had the shotgun. And so, heaven and earth move to align with the story you yourself are going to tell.
Amazing.
From the choice you yourself made. And I know that's hard to glean on a dime, especially in a very challenging situation, but that's what we were all tasked to do at that point. That's where the human collective had brought themselves to.
Amazing. What you just said there, because you're bringing it back to choice, because that's what we have. That's that's everything. That's the diamond. That's the holy grail, is your choice.
Because we cut ourselves off from the rest of ourselves, we have that choice. Yes, if we knew who we were, the choice wouldn't exist, right? And that's why a lot of people think there's no free will. But you have to remember that we're not talking about what is when we're talking about dimensional existence. We're talking about the experience of what is. And that's very individual and unique through various dimensions, down into the one we are experiencing here now in and as ourself. And so here in 3D, we're in the amnesic state, right? And we're modeled by the illusion that the world is outside ourselves and that things are separate from one another. And in this illusion, we have choice.
Yeah, exactly.
We have the experience of choice.
Yeah, we have the experience of choice.
Mm-hmm. And here we're in the duality structure, and the chess game is in play, and there are the black pieces and the white pieces, or the ebony pieces and the ivory pieces. I almost like saying it more like that because nobody has anything against ebony and ivory, right? Or at least not that I know of.
Ebony.
And
Yeah.
both are necessary to the game, to the learning. And does the learning produce what's commonly coined these days as Monroe popularized loosh? Yes. And is that loosh energy in which the cosmic structure can keep the dimensional existence alive and going? Yes, it's its breath. It's its literal breath. And again, the way in which we ourselves create that, because there's love loosh and there's fear loosh, right? So again, we come right back to the choice. So what kind of loosh are you going to create for the dimensional existence? Again, it is your choice. Are you in the Enlil faction or are you in the Enki faction? There is no hierarchy. There is no good or bad. The two, the second, the one and the second are necessary for the game, for the learning, for the loosh, for the breath energy for which the cosmos can keep the dimensional existence going until it can complete with itself. If it can't complete with itself, it was all for naught, yes? So are we all energy? Yes, we're all energy. What kind of energy are you being? Are you making that choice to, make your choices from fear or make your choices from love?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's actually, have you read a book called Reality Transurfing?
Mm-mm.
Russian mystic, an absolute misfit. You can't find him anywhere. He wrote a book. He was a physicist and he wrote a book and then he went missing, like on purpose. And it's called Reality Transurfing. And he just talks about choices. That's it. And you don't know how to create what you want if you don't know what choices that you have. You have to know what your choices are. So it's like me and you talking about our multidimensional experiences. So you choose to run through it and I choose to become it. We had a choice to interact with that experience. And we found a way. It's the choice that got you to where you are in this moment and me to where I am in this moment. By the choices that we made in those experiences. Right?
How to experience, yes. And yeah, the ways of how to experience it, as far as the Crayolas in the Crayola box, this is sort of different than or unique to the idea of the love or fear choice. So that being the central choice, yes, from either one of those, there's a spectrum of ways to experience yourself. And yes, they're all super fun. A lot of people like to fly in their experiences. I don't like to fly. I mean, flying is okay. It's like, not that it's bad. It's that the thing that I got the most joy from was running at lightning speeds. Oh my gosh. There is no experience that brought me more joy than that. It feels unlike anything else. And I would be put on these obstacle courses, or exercise courses. I don't know. They were both, and it was always where the threshold came where I was going to be able to get to run at lightning speed that I always enjoyed the most. And there was a variety of different things that would happen on the path through the course. But yeah, when I experienced myself in wave form, I experienced myself as fast sound vibration, as the gate that you experienced, and yes, I can do that. And I can also experience something else. I can experience running at lightning speed right through the gate, so that's just another choice, but it doesn't have to do with fear or love. You know what I mean? It's just another distinct way in which to have that same experience.
Yeah, because if there's no separation, then you are everything. So if you are in a planet or you want to go to a location, then just be the location or run at lightning speed or fly. Like we are all of it. And as you said, there's no good or bad or there's no right or wrong. There's the dark pieces and the light pieces. And which part are you playing?
Hmm. Yeah, here in the game, especially. Here in the game, especially. And as far as how you get from here to there, well, that's one of the joys of taking your attention, your focus deep into the shift itself, is the many different ways you can shift. So I experienced myself shifting in more. I mean, some are just hilarious. Some are what I enjoyed the most. So, in OBE circles, like the prime way to shift is what they call the phase, right? You're here, then you're there. Like almost no shift in between. Now, the fun in that can be that they're very hard to cognize. Congratulations if you've arrived to the point where you're able to phase shift. However, it's not the funnest way to stop. Like the shift itself, what happens between here and there contains a lot. And so, like, you're missing out on a ton when you shift that way. You don't have to. You can download it back into yourself, but most people don't. They're not focused or interested in the shift itself. They're interested in what's happening here or there, and so for them, that's the ideal. For me, dematerializing was the ideal. So I got to experience every cell in my body demolecularize and remolecularize into a new shape and structure and a new environment. And it's just a phenomenal experience. It was my preference. The most challenging was when the environment would dematerialize, demolecularize. That would just knock me out. There was so much light in that I could not, in the beginning especially, maintain a conscious state in that. I did learn to, but I lost awareness more than I kept it. I kept it more than I lost it if I myself would demolecularize and just molecularize myself elsewhere. And again, I'm not doing this. Casey is not doing this. Our 3D persona is never the one doing this. It's our higher fractal consciousness. And that's the first thing that I began to detect when I very first began to shift out of body. I could feel the arrival of a highly tangible presence in the space, very detectable through the whole of me. And it would merge with me, literally envelop me, and that would result in the out of body state. However, again, I would take my attention into the shift and witness a variety of things. The first thing I began to become aware of was that the barometer in the space seemed to change. I felt like I was on the inside of a balloon being blown up. And that sensation would be present for a while. And then I would realize that I was not breathing, or I was moving into the state of kumbhaka, which would fascinate me and which I would take my attention into even more deeply because I was interested in what is that? What's the difference between an in and an out breath and that? And that is just radiance. Like love radiates on its own. It can't stop itself from doing it. The sun radiates, light radiates, and it doesn't need to radiate on a pattern in and out. It just radiates. And in that is an aliveness. You're alive in that, more alive than what we think of being alive as here. And then I would be aware of this particular pulsing pattern that was I could detect that was even deeper to that. And that's when I knew I was going to be in another environment soon, after a while. But you can just keep taking your attention deeper and deeper into the shift itself to see what you can observe. The more you can observe, the more you can bring back, the more new ideas will come back into our system with us. And that's the whole point, to bring back something new, to drop something into the 3D earth life that can help it, that can help expand it, that can help it bring it into more of what you yourself are, whether that is what it is or the other. Let's just say this very neutrally. Yeah. And so in the shift itself, here's a funny thing. So I felt the highly tangible presence. I could feel it envelop me. I knew it was responsible for everything that was happening and myself, because I had to keep myself out of fear and conscious. It wasn't going to do that for me. I had to learn how to do that. But again, it's a dance. It's a dialogue. Yeah, and in that you're learning. You're making observations and you're learning. And so like when I would go flying, here's something that very few people think of doing. I myself didn't think of doing it. I was listening to an interview on Coast to Coast with Albert. What was his last name? I can't remember his last name at the moment, but he was talking about flying and how in one experience he discovered that he was actually being held to in the experience. And, it gave me the idea, am I actually being held in this experience? And so the next time I was flying, I looked down, damned if there wasn't a set of arms around me. And I tried to turn myself around to see who it was and literally blacked out. Yeah, I wasn't going to be allowed to see that yet. My central nervous system not ready. However, I did get to see that, yes, I wasn't the one flying. I was being flown. It's mind-blowing. And then I began to see this more and more in my experiences. So like I would be in an OBE and like just when it was sort of getting going and getting interesting, I would feel like the environment would begin to fade to black, and I would realize I was being shifted. But the perceptual shift literally felt like this Titan-sized person, a male, very clearly male to me, just lifted me up by the back belt loop of my pant and placed me somewhere else. And then an environment would come back in and I'd be like, why do they always do that? I feel like such a child, like dangling there, like bent over while I was literally like a cell in a petri dish being picked up and put over here into this one. That always fascinated me. It always cracked me up. I never lost awareness in a shift like that. Although I always did try to glean who that was doing it. I could glean the Titan size. I could glean the masculinity of it. I could usually not glean much more. I could glean that there was someone else with that one also. So yeah, there are just so many ways to shift. And oh God, one of the first ways in the first month I was going out, what was terrifying. It was like the acceleration of the experience would come on fast because I was being perceptually lifted straight up. It was a vertical shift. And in that, I could sort of detect in the blackness, it was like I was inside of a column and all of these hands and were reaching out for me and trying to like drag me back down. And but it was fast and it was straight up. But yeah, it's like an inner column or coliseum, a tubular of that vision of hell where you see all of these entities like reaching out that are still in the lower. It was an experience like that. And I could observe that, but fortunately the shift was so vertical and therefore so fast that I just had an instant to observe it. There wasn't the time to go into fear, and then there was just too much else to focus on in the experience when I would land in the etheric. Yeah. And
Are these all at nighttime when you're in bed?
Yes. Or
yeah. So you just lie
down. Back then I was a horizontal meditator, so Shavasana was one of my disciplines. This is dead man's pose. So you're just laying flat, okay, body grounded to the earth, attention at the brow, paying attention to the fact that you're breathing. You'll begin to, at a certain depth in the meditation, it usually happens quite rapidly, especially when you're becoming a moderate to advanced meditator, you'll realize you can no longer sense the ground beneath you. And you enter this state of levitation. And I was always happy with just that state, the state of pure peace and weightlessness. And yeah. And so most of my fully conscious, these are meditative states. So yes, a lot of them happened in the night, but also, yes, a lot of them happened in my meditative practice during the day.
I had an experience recently that it was just an experience. I didn't judge it. I didn't like it. I did not like it. It was a very unusual experience, but it wasn't really unusual because no experience is unusual. It's just the ordinary having an ordinary experience, but you think it's extraordinary, but it's not.
It's extraordinary. The experience of it is.
But but it's not really, because that makes it special, and it's not special. That sets it aside from it. This is how my mind works, right? So
Yeah.
I'm in a satsang and my friend's having a satsang, and I've gone to many of these, and I'm sitting there, and my mum just passed away. So I was in that space of veils opening and closing like for months. And I shouldn't have gone, but I did. And I went, and as I went, and I was just there, and when I go to these kind of places, I just sit quietly and I close my eyes. And I noticed my body began to rattle inside. Everything started shaking, and I thought, oh, it's freezing in here. But it wasn't freezing, because my first thought is it's freezing. It's so cold. And then the girl beside me brought a blanket and it was on the floor. And I said, can I have your blanket? And I put it on me, and I was like, just shaking and shaking. And I actually got self-conscious. I thought, are people going to think I'm shaking? Because I'm not a shaker, right? I'm very still.
Mm-hmm.
And people are just talking. It's not just a satsang. So I realize I'm now having an experience. So I just have to let go. I just got to go. Just go roll with this. Let it move through you. So I'm like, okay. My mum shows up here because she always shows up here. And then I kind of energetically, I looked behind me and there was a djinn. And I was like, what are you doing here? Like, I don't see you. We don't interact. We're done. Like, I'm good. You leave me alone. I leave you alone. And there was this djinn, and I instantly knew it was a djinn. And I don't know a lot about them, but I knew that's what it was. And I wasn't afraid, and I wasn't disturbed. I was just like, why are you here? Mm-hmm. And it showed me. And what it did is it popped out like this. And then I could see through the corridors of time. Right. And I was like, the corridors of time. And it wants to go home. It wants to go back to the light. It wants to remember what it is. It wants to remember. So I'm thinking, oh, okay. And then I took a deeper look, and then loads of them showed up. They pulled out to the side and I could see them. They were kind of hiding. They weren't, they were humbled or something. They were humble. And they were all there, and there was corridors of time. And then, as it does, it began to fractalize itself. So there was millions of corridors of time, and all these jinns are looking at me, and my body's really rattling now, and I'm really uncomfortable. I don't like this because I don't like the physical effects it's having on me. I don't mind that. It's just my nervous system is shot because of my mum passing away 3 days before that, and just all of that. And I thought, just Lee, don't judge this. Don't resist it. Just witness what's happening. So this girl was in front of me, and she says, oh, I'm nervous talking. And he said to her, well, I'm going to give you 3 minutes to just talk about anything. And so she just goes on, and she says, but I don't want to talk. So I'm aware I'm in this space, but I'm absolutely not there. I can hear what's happening, and I know I'm on a chair, but I'm in a multiverse, having a huge experience, and they're talking, and I know what they're going to say. It's very expanded. And then she said, he goes, what are you? And she says, I'm a soul. And the moment she said soul, this light showed up. And they're like, we just want to return back to the light. Because they forget who they are. They get so dark, and they get so taken over by darkness that they think that's what they are. But they're still, and I'm like, okay. So I'm like, he won't stop talking. I'm like waiting for him to get going, because he does this thing. And I'm thinking he won't, he just stop talking and get going, because I can't contain this, right? So then his girlfriend comes over and she puts her arms around me, and she says, do you want to come up to the front? And I said to her, all of the dimensions have opened. And she said, okay. So I go up to the front, and I instantly just feel better. And we start doing a targeting light for someone who's sick, let's say. And then instantly, when they all go in, all the people that were there go in, and they just see nothing but love and wholeness for this person, just seeing them whole. And then this big blast of light happens, and all of the corridors of time just start folding in on themselves. Right? So this all is in seconds. And then suddenly it's like, boom, I'm not cold anymore. I'm sitting there and I'm going, I just want to go home. I don't want to finish the sad song. I just want to go home. So then I went back and I sat in my seat and it was over. Then I left just before it ended and I went and had a huge meal. I just had a very, very, very big breakfast to try and help my body. And I thought, you know, I learned a lesson, and the lesson was I was an access point for them to go through the light, because I was going to an environment that we were working with high frequency light, okay? And they knew that, and I happened to just be in a hospital for 3-4 months with corridors of dead people, right? Corridors of dead people going back for hundreds of years as well. So I was thinking, okay, this is like intense. So I realized that for me personally, when I'm going through a life changing experience, energy work like that shouldn't really be happening. I don't need to put myself in those environments, because I'm going to it. It's just not healthy for me personally. I'm delighted that they all did what they needed to do, but I thought, I didn't ask for that. I didn't want that. I don't mind that happening, but that's just not really where I'm at in myself. Do you know what I mean? Clearings and spaces. It's never really been my thing. So then that happened. And I realized that that's just an important point in time that those things happened, and it's got nothing to do with me, but I just happened to be there at that time for that shift to happen. And since then, it made me very aware of where I am within myself, the universe of myself. Like I was in a Pilates class last night and it was a full moon, and me and the moon are a bit like this at the moment. I have a bit of a dodgy relationship with the moon. It annoys me because it's so impactful. You know, I'm just like, really? I don't have a love relationship with the moon. It's one relationship I have to work on. But I was in this class and she's like, now, and she's very specific, in your right leg and your left hand. And I was aware I had a body, and as the body was taking the instructions, I wasn't in my body. I was observing, like you look at the rock and then become aware of you looking at the rock. And this is happening like permanently. And it's fine, but it's unusual. I don't know if it's a clap. It's a bit like it's unusual, Casey Claar.
You're doing what I call turning inside out. People used to ask me, what happens in your meditations? How are you able to stay so deep in your meditations for so long? I say, because I'm turning inside out. And so when you very first sit down to meditate, you're experiencing your boundaries as the outside edge of your body, as we do here in 3D space. The floor is separate from you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, when you sit down and you begin to take your attention in, you go into the center of yourself, and everything radiates from that. And so there's nothing outside yourself anymore. You are the radiance in which everything is then happening. So there's no more circumference around you. You've gone from having a circumference around you to being the point from which all is radiating. Oh, and in that is a stability. It's the central truth of the situation, and it doesn't need any ability for us to hold our attention to it. It just is. But, however long we can hold our attention to it, the experience will go on, and everybody's threshold for that is what it is in any given meditation, right?
Like 2 days ago, I had cooking dinner with my daughter, and she's pop on. We watched The Sopranos, right? Don't ask. So I was looking to download season 1, and I was aware I had to get The Sopranos, but I couldn't remember what it was called. I couldn't remember it was a season, a TV show season. It's like, and then I got disturbed for a moment, because the moon does this. The day before the moon, I get disturbed. And it was like, you're losing your mind, like medically, not spiritually, and I thought, oh God, is my daughter going to have to look after me? And I thought, stop thinking like that. And then it just got worse, to the point where she says, what's your password? I don't know. Where's your phone? I don't know. I'm like, phone? It's becoming so abstract that I'm trying to hold my shit together to kind of act normal when there's nothing normal. But it's the most normal I've ever been.
You're just acclimating. You're
Okay.
acclimating to the new experience. And as you acclimate, you will ground in that acclimation.
Okay.
So I always cognized it as I realized that something was happening to myself cognitively, consciously, with my mind when I began
Yeah.
going out of body. And after a period of time, I began to glean it was because I was no longer accessing. It's not that I not only was not doing this, I could not access memory in the way that I used to. So, like, where's your phone? And you think back to the last place you use your phone or where you always put your phone and you say that, but you're actually reaching into your memory to do that. And your faculty of memory is different than your faculty of pure awareness, right? So, in the way that we use memory in 3D space is by backtracking through time very rapidly. I mean, we've gotten good at it. We can do it in an instant sometimes, and then, longer instants in others, right? Um, but when you stop trying to get the answer from actively taking your memory, back in the timeline, and then to where you are now to say where your cell phone is, you're accessing pure awareness. And you will get good at that. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it. So, like, don't be afraid of that. You're just accessing a new faculty of yourself because you've come into an expanded state. And so you don't have to
This is
use the old
so
tool.
helpful.
Go
I
ahead.
feel better now. No, I do. Like, I have to tell you that because I'm thinking, do I have to lose this to get this? And I thought, no, it doesn't go like that. You don't have to. So you're saying don't access your memory. You don't need to access your memory.
Don't go back to the old tool. You take yourself back into the old state. You've entered an expanded state, and now you have a new tool there to use and learn to access that. That will tell you.
So, like, I'm going to
It
get
just
you
comes as
a
a knowing.
cosmic stewardess jumper for Christmas. Like, you're like the cosmic steward on, on a plane, and it's like there's freshmen here and the toilets are there. Like, so you're like that in the cosmos. You're like, hi, this is this level, and at this level, you don't worry. You have, I bet you are in another fractal somewhere doing that. Actually, you are a role for that because you go in and you're like, get the information here. Like, you're just a natural teacher. You've come to teach. That's it. How you log information, how you log it and again and again and again because you want to bring it here to this 3D space. Only a teacher would do that. Why would you do that if you're a teacher? You're just an explorer, you know? No, you're a
Well, that's
teacher.
a good thing to go into. In fact, why this is sort of how we began. And I know we were going to talk about stellar memory, but I think that in all of this, we actually are. And we'll get to that kind of stuff too, and more directly if you want to stay a little bit longer. But this is the first thing I could detect on why to make the logs was because I could see through the OBE and stopping short at the etheric to write everything down that's what I would bring more fully back with me very stably. It would just be there on its own. I didn't have to hold to it, at least not in that day or week, So this was one of the reasons to make the logs. It embedded it more at the front of my attention. Again, in 3D space, the rule is to let go of that in order to have the 3D experience. But as we begin to graduate, to grow out, to expand our state, then we have to learn how to embed things at the front without letting them go. And this takes us into that new tool that we're going to use to access. That's no longer, I'm going to call it rote memory. And this is the way we access memory or utilize memory in 3D space. It's different than, stellar memory, of course, which has a larger circumference, right? And it can access the horizontal and vertical timeline, meaning all dimensions of space and one to multiple dimensions of time. And so what it can do with that is very different. But yeah, you learn how to access your present awareness. Your present awareness knows everything. It's everywhere all at once. so instead of accessing rote memory, you're just accessing present awareness. And again, the more you do that, the more you get good at it. Right. And in that, you'll make observations. If you log those observations, then they'll stay more at the front of your attention as you're acclimating to all of this new stuff, right? So another reason to make the log, if it stays at the front of your attention, you can pass it on to others more easily, yes? Because it's more stable in you right there at the front of your attention. And the more you realize that you're accessing your present state of attention, and that includes more dimension than our 3D Earth person. It includes multiple dimensions of our own higher fractal consciousness, galactic level beings, and even our universal structure archetype that our life is based on. All of that. We have access to all of it. That is our present attention in that expanded state.
Is that stellar memory? Is that what you mean when you say stellar memory?
It is stellar memory, yes, but stellar memory, I'm more referring to the galactic spectrum alone. However, that is connected and a fractal within the universal structure. So it's all connected. And you could go as deep into that structure as you wish, to have the experience. Everything is a fractal within itself, right? So, and as above, so below. So there's a cosmic structure that fractals down within itself into a universal structure, which fractals down within itself into galactic structures, which fractal down within themselves into planetary structures. It's all one. It's all at once. There's nothing outside of it. However, if you are at that planetary level, there will seem to be a distance between you and other planets, between your galaxy and other galaxies, etc. Right? And so the experience had in that is very different. Now, if you can maintain awareness of the cosmic structure, the universal structure, the galactic structure, and your planetary self all at once, you have access to so much information. One. Two, you have access into other people's discrete fields because they are occurring within those structures as well. I tend to feel these through my own physical body structure. Like I can tell when the mind is expanding. I can tell when thoughts in a person are beginning to alter. I can tell where in their body they're holding their stress, what their collective stress patterns are in a physical sense. And I can work at helping undoing these by simply relaxing within myself there. Because if they are listening and if they are open, me relaxing there within myself causes an instant relaxation there within themselves. And some people do this or provide this service through tones in the voice when they're speaking. Some do by just their pure presence, right? Like in a satsang or an energy transfer experience. So there's all kinds of different ways in which to transfer that information to another and a way to help them. It's, again, coming back to the shift, which is experiencing yourself in waveform, which does allow you to experience yourself as fast-moving sound vibration. So those vibrations pick up on the other vibrations, and there's information in there. And even if I myself do not consciously cognize what that information is, it's still there and it can still come through me. Sometimes I'm saying something and, when I began doing it, where'd that come from? That's not like something I know. And that's when you access the stellar memory through things like this, and why the skill with the crystal came up, right? And the beings that started and the stories, the entire stories, my birth into the earth life, the Anunnaki, the starseeds, ancient Egypt, all of these stories came through. All of the stories within me began coming through so that I could see them and remember them. And this activated my stellar memory, my galactic memory. Those were the galactic beings that started coming through. Yeah. And as they come through and as I see them and gaze into them, I do begin to glean more of myself, as those discrete personas. Not much, because I don't have much time to give to it. There's so much else to do. But I do my best. I take it as far as I can, which is pretty darn far at this point. 400 to 500.
You take it so far. You have started this year on your YouTube doing a series. You do a series of contact and the beings, and sometimes I'll watch that and I get so lost in it. Like, I go into a trance actually watching your work, and it's like it's dancing in me. It moves me. I'm always so moved by watching you, listening to you, because you have a certain tone in your voice that settles my nervous system enough so I can actually really be present with what you're saying. And when you're introducing the beings on the TV, because I always watch it on my TV because they're big then, and you let it sit there for a moment, like the transmissions are just, and then I just go about doing something when it's finished, and I'm just blown. I feel blown wide open to possibilities, and the memory of that. It's like it's kick starting the memory of contact. It's like it does that, and I'm aware that it does that, and I love that.
And it's just stellar memory itself. It's when the stellar memory starts accessing our planetary memory that we begin to have the awareness of certain things like contact, the presence of ETs, disclosure, the 3D control system that exists here, all of this, which faction that we're here through, which kind of chess piece are we on the board at present in the current incarnation, and all of this. It opens up a whole bucket of worms.
Yeah.
It was important that it happened with me, because I have a certain difficulty with the duality. I came in so highly neutral. It took me a long time to begin to glean which I was, and I could clearly see and did not judge, all of my more negative activities, where I'm enforcing myself or being more forceful, rather than more allowing. And it's an important thing to begin to glean. You mentioned what happened in 2020. We won't name it out loud, but all of that had a particular agenda. And so, like, discerning whether on the board you're one of the black pieces or ebony pieces or one of the ivory pieces. Another thing that we have to glean is whether we're here on what I call the natural timeline or the AI timeline.
Wow.
Because those are those are the bifurcations of the timelines that are happening here at present, and they're in full force. We are now merging man with machine in a variety of different ways to progress along the AI timeline, to advance the current Earth human out beyond its planetary level experience by merging man with machine and becoming more that way, or the natural timeline. And it's really important, if you're here on the natural timeline, to not engage in activity that take you along the AI timeline. It won't be pleasant for anyone, doing this to the degree that you come wholly off your path, right? Nothing is ever for wrong. Everything is a learning experience. And the cosmic structure is huge. I mean, our lifetimes are just nothing. I mean, literally nothing. Nano bits and, an infinite
technology.
everything, right? But
stay with the timelines. Don't move just yet. So there's the natural organic, and there's the AI timeline, and there's a crossing. So share a bit more about your awareness of that.
Okay, so my own group refers to them a bit differently than what I just did. I refer to them that way because other people will understand. But my group refers to them and informed me about it by taking me into an out-of-body experience in which the two factions were thus named the naturals and the chemical synthetics. That's much easier for me to cognize than AI, because it begins to tell me exactly what activities to engage in and not engage in, and why I never did engage in some. For instance, I never took myself into the medical care system, even though I work in it and help others. I never took myself there. So I don't have a doctor. I've never been to the doctor. I mean, I don't have a medical record. I don't do chemical synthetic uh, 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 things. And now I know why, because in that experience, I clearly saw I was one of the naturals. And by the way, the chemical synthetics were good people. It's the way that most people do their duality as good and evil, I believe, takes them into a very false matrix. And it's a false matrix that is experienced every bit as real as an actual matrix, one that's created by the higher ups, for us to play in, and not one that's done by our personal mind that is structured by thoughts that aren't accurate. It takes us into a false matrix that's right there inside of the actual matrix. And we experience that real as real can be, right? But no, they were good people. What happened in this experience, we were in this warehouse and one of ours got injured. And I cannot tell you how concerned the chemical synthetics were about this. And we had to get to a point where we could all line up and meet face to face and talk this out, work this out. What happened? And yeah, it's an experiences like this that I really, now again, there's nothing outside ourself, and I experience this reality due to the way I myself think. Uh, you know, however, again, we choose how we each think, and so we each flavor that which our realities are created by and structured by that, and so it's really important that we do watch the way that we think, because thoughts are things. Thoughts become our reality. Yeah. So yeah, they showed me that there's the naturals and the chemical synthetics, that in the naturals, there are positive and negative, or ebony and ivory players. And in the chemical synthetics, there are ebony and ivory players. It's not all one or all the other. When I began seeing how people would ask me how I could go out so often and so much and all of that. And when I began to look into that, I could see it was because I created that level playing field in my own mind or in my own thinking. So I placed reality and dream on a level playing field. When you place them on a level field, you can easily walk back and forth between the fields, right? The dimensions. However, when you elevate one and push the other down, what do? You lock the door.
Yeah.
Reality is real. The other is just fantasy. It's nothing to pay attention to. You, with your own thinking, lock your own door. Are we in a prison planet? No, we are ourselves a choice point, and in that choice point, we make choices. And in those choices, we either lock or unlock our own doors. So if I feel I'm better than someone, I lock a door. I also lock myself in the planetary level of experience, because there's some violence that can happen in that, right? If I like to use this one because it's a non sequitur kind of, but in meditation, for me, horizontal, laying down, was definitely superior to vertical, sitting up. Horizontal meditation's much superior, right? So in that, what did I do? I locked the door for myself, because clearly it would be more advantageous to be able to meditate in either of those positions. And they are associated with the vertical and horizontal axis. So, but did I lock my door by insisting upon that preference? It's okay to have preferences, but understand that they're personal, and that in themselves, horizontal and vertical are equal. So when you put them on a level playing field, you unlock your own door, and you can experience along either of those, right? So much broader spectrum in that. So,
but going back to AI timelines, I'm not interested in wandering down an AI reality timeline for myself.
Right. And so are you doing things, though, however, thinking things and doing things that might direct you there? And this is what we have to come into the awareness of. So if I'm taking a lot of chemical synthetic drugs, if I'm eating conventional food, which is genetically modified and sprayed with chemical substances, if I am even having the thought that natural is superior to chemical synthetic, all of these things will lock me in to a particular place. And if they're strong enough, throw me out of my path and into the other. All of the shots that one can take in life are again chemical synthetic. They're bypassing your immune system, which begins in the mouth and throat, right, and going right into the venous system. So they take you or can take you that way much more rapidly, especially if you consciously choose to do them yourself. When we're children, it's a bit different. It's sort of like when you don't know something is wrong, you're not as affected by it adversely as when you do it when you know it is. So once I knew that I was here on the positive trajectory along the natural timeline, now I'm aware of that. If I behave or think differently, I'm more and more quickly adversely affected by that, meaning taken off my own path by it, you know. And so this is the reason it's important to start to, in an awakening, remember who you are so that you can stay purely upon your own path. So you can understand why to consciously make the decisions that you are to stay on that path, unless you consciously want to shift. So go
Yeah, like
another
some
way.
people want the AI, they want that world, they want all the technology and excellent tech. That's great, but that's for me. I just know spending more time in nature than I normally would, like connecting with the natural organic, eating natural organic foods, having natural, real conversations, and staying out of very stimulated environments like shopping centers, which really they just don't suit me at all anymore. It's like I can't even, 20 minutes is my max. And I have to just be aware that like the phone is very addictive. And I'm aware that when I'm on my phone and I realize it's like an hour's gone, it's like I've been sucked in. I have to
Mm,
just put it down. Just put it down.
yes.
And
So that's
do
another
you know,
one.
like,
That's
yeah, it
another
just
one.
gets stuck to your head. And then your whole awareness is on this, like, device. For me, it's nature, it's animals, it's having good conversations, it's eating good food, it's meditating, it's working out, whether that's walking or training, being in my body. So I'm not living in my mind, because I used to meditate a lot. And I forgot I was kind of a human. I was just kind of more interested in meditating. My human life had no interest. And I kind of reversed that. And now I'm all about, I have a body, I look after my body. I sit and I contemplate. I don't call it meditation anymore. I just sit and I go into that, my greater being. Yeah, it's like I'm enveloped within my greater being. And then the essence of me, the weight of that carries the truth of everything. And I'm enveloped in that, and anything I need to know at any given, it's like constant. There's not even words, it's just knowing. And I do that, but I don't rely on that because it's always there. It's always there. I bring it into the every moment. And I think it's important for people to know that there are two very distinct timelines that we're on. And one of them is fully charged and plugged in. And the other one and it is a synthetic overlay. And it's as real as anything. It's real. It's not fake, but it's a synthetic overlay. It's a mirror image of something that's distorted, but doesn't look distorted.
Now,
But it's
see,
not good at that.
there's an uneven thought, and you'll lock the
Yeah.
door. And if you think it
Yeah.
too much, you can take yourself onto the other path, the synthetic path. So remember that creating the level playing field is important in an awakening process, most especially. So in a duality system, the one will always have its complement, male, female, perceptually up, down. Now, how do you make up and down equal? You spin them. Okay. And so it's really easy to do. So if you think up is better than down, because we often think of up heaven, down hell, those kind of thoughts lock our door. So
Yeah, you just said it.
how do you make up and down neutral? You put them on a level playing field. They are equivalents. They're equivalents falling together.
Equal. Okay.
Yeah, not right, wrong. Both
But I
right.
choose one or the other. But I choose one. I don't choose that. I choose this.
Right,
That's not right or wrong. It's just choice.
it's just a choice. Exactly. Coming out of judgment is the very
Yeah,
important
it's
thing.
just a choice. I'm going to have a tea and not a coffee. I don't not like coffee. I just don't want coffee. I'm having a
It's
tea.
okay to have a personal preference so long as you don't judge coffee as being bad and tea good, right? It's okay to have a preference. Here's two choices, and what's my preference? Yeah,
Right.
preferences are
Leave it
fine.
at that.
Important to know our preferences. Yeah.
And it's important to know you have a choice. So you're just saying harbor no ill will in your heart.
Yeah. The other, again, there's black and white team players on the natural path, and there's black and white team players on the chemical synthetic path.
Of course.
And then coming into the black and white itself, or the ebony and the ivory itself, it's not that one is bad and the other is good. You're going to lock your door, and by that judgment, take yourself down here. Okay. Remember, self is all there is, and the dark is what we push out of our attention, and the light is what we push into it.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
And so it's important to let rise what we've pushed down. This is our shadow, right? People refer to this as our shadow. It's important to let that rise, come up on an even keel and complete with it. Yeah. And so when you make that level playing field, you're on the exponential path.
That's brilliant.
You kind of have to see everywhere you're uniquely doing that, like I did with horizontal and vertical, and other people will do with Christians and this guy, or whatever. If you don't put them on a level playing field, you're locking your own door and you're creating your own, potentially, war.
Yeah, limitations. Excellent. So
Here's
to
why.
be limitless is, yeah, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is an idea that recently started coming through to me about why the galactics, together with the archetypes, created the fractal, the third dimensional or planetary level fractal here in the Earth life. Like, what is the Earth? Why did the 3D Earth life get created? So the 3D Earth life is a fractal of our galaxy, and our galaxy, and the galactic spectrum are, infinite galaxies, right? So we're talking about multiple spectrums. So why did the galaxies fractal down within themselves into a 3D planetary level experience for themselves, in which they are who are fractaling down and becoming embodied here as? Why did they do that?
Who are you talking about?
The galactics. Why did the galactic level beings, the Arcturians and, all of the galactic beings, why did they fractal down into a 3D Earth life experience where they were going to lock themselves? All the galactics locked themselves, that do, not all of the galactics, but all of those who do or have locked themselves in on a planetary level experience here as us, where we incarnate currently as us, where we currently incarnate as Earth humans, right? They took a really expansive experience territory and put all of themselves on this tiny planet, locked themselves here. Why'd they do that? I think it's for the same reason that in my experience with the naturals and the chemical synthetics, we had to come together and work it out. It's for a similar reason for that, right? They had to come together here and work it out. Work what out? Their differences, their divisions, yes. So literally, it's like if we took everybody here on our planet and placed them into a small room together. Said you can't leave that room until you work it out.
Yeah.
Well,
How do you think we're doing?
it could be a pretty stressful room, right? Yeah.
So here's a thought. Do you think that the AI or the synthetic timeline is created by a fraction to get one over on the other? No. Okay. So
No,
where
I
does
think that
3A?
the 3D, the 3D and the 3D control system is neutral. Why is it neutral? Because without that level playing field, there's no out. The door is always locked. So this is why, in my mind, or in my way of thinking, I don't really have
You
my
just got to
mind,
run
it's
through
just
that door,
mine.
babes.
The 3D control system is neutral, and it's not what most people think it is.
Yeah, that's true.
It's at its basis a set of definitions. The galactics got together and decided on these
We agree.
definitions.
We agree to all of it.
These deciding points. Okay, you can't fly over there, you can't shift out of the reality, you can't walk through walls. They got together and they made the set of definitions, and that's what the control system is. It's like our American Constitution, right? It's just a set of definitions that defines what the United States is going to be and how we're going to behave, right?
No one listens to that.
Well, I'm just saying it in itself.
They don't hold weight anymore.
Let's not get sidetracked. And yes, they do, because although you can have the thought that they don't experience, that real is real can be. But they
we did experience in 2012, 2020 when the emergency protocols overwrit all of those constitutions.
They didn't. We always had choice. And we always will have choice. It's, will you choose to tell this story in which this thing is happening from your sovereignty or from your slavehood or victimhood? You get to choose from how are you going to flavor your story? Remember, it's a bifurcation. In a duality system, there's always the two. So you're constantly making that choice. And the central choice is sovereign or slave. How am I going to frame myself in my story? Always.
You're right on it. Always.
There's many people who didn't fall into giving up their sovereignty. I'm one of them. And
me too.
I had some people around me. I had a structure built around me by the time it happened. That also was very helpful. It was a larger grounding of the similar idea, sovereignty.
Yeah, it's really important.
It is. Mm-hmm.
I don't think sovereignty lives on the synthetic timeline, and I'm not gonna. I'm just saying sovereignty.
If it doesn't, then you've done this, and that's okay to do this. But as soon as you see that that's what you've done, remember, you are the reality you're experiencing. What you say goes. There is nothing outside of that. And so if you say there's not, you're taking yourself into an experience in which there's not. Simple as that. That's not a fundamental reality outside of you. That's a self-created choosing of a path in which to experience and learn and make more choices. Yeah. And so anytime, again, that level playing field is so important. Anytime you push one up, you push the other down and lock your own doors. And if you do that to
you can say that to me a million times.
You actually push yourself down. Yeah.
It's like you're locking that in by repeating it. Like you're saying it again and again and again because you're saying it multidimensionally. You're saying it to different parts of me. I'm listening to you and I'm clocking it at different levels.
Yeah, good. I'm like,
wow. It's a living consciousness conversation, this is, because as you talk, because my greater being has spoken through you a lot through this directly to parts of me, and it's locking in a different, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Like, I don't have to take LSD to understand you. I actually get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. I don't have magic mushroom chocolates, like I get it.
And so when you log it by saying it and then embody it by taking that idea into an experience in which you've put these on a level playing field. And what do you do when you do that, by the way? You see the differentials between when you do that and don't do that. You'll start to see the differentials. Yeah. And then it'll reach a point where you don't really need to see the differentials anymore. You've experienced them. You realize what they are. You can detect immediately when you've done it and course correct, and all of that. The more you log certain details about when you yourself have done it, what have happened, your observations and the differentials, the more that extra information will stay to the front of your attention, and you'll be able to transfer that on to others more easily until you reach a point where you can instantaneously access your pure awareness instead of your rote memory. But we're in that gradient shift right now, so the logs are so important. Otherwise,
Well, I actually do I'm going to start logging. Like, you've convinced me, like, get the paper out. I have a million notebooks and they're empty.
and you can do
Do you write it?
you can do a video log too. But I just think that with the horizontal and vertical, the video log and the written logs are complementary to each other. It's a unique sort of something happens when you write something down. Like when I was stopping at the etheric, I didn't just say those words, I had to write them down, meaning I had to ground them on something physical, visual, for them to more fully embed at the front.
It's so true, because I did a multidimensional hypnotherapy session last year, and I wanted to go outside of this universe, just to go outside of all of this chess game, and I wanted to just see. And what I was able to observe and witness, it was beautiful. Actually, it was just it was symphonies, and it was all frequencies, and this planet has a frequency, a sound, actually, and then all the solar system has a sound, everything has a sound, but then this universe has a sound, and everything within this universe is a sound of that sound, and then the other universes have different sounds, and then the multiverse, and it just went on and on and on. But what I did was, when I got back, I logged it, I wrote it down and drew little pictures, and it's never left my memory because of it. I can put, it's like in my archive. So when I see something, it's like, yeah, I know that because, and I've done a lot of sessions and they're just washed over me. Yeah. I logged it, and now it's part of my understanding of reality.
And you've just said something very important. A written log doesn't have to be in words. It could be in pictures.
Right.
Symbols, geometries, shapes, colors. Not even in any shape, but that generally takes on. But it can be in any way that you wish. It can be in a painting. With me, it's right. This is the way another way in which I write. Right, I bring visuals into a visual format that I can meet face to face here in this field. Yes. And what does that do? Just as you said it did with you, it begins to shift you out into the larger field, into the expanded state, right from right here. That's the shift. That's the shift. We're just experiencing it from the conscious state while wide awake. And do all of the different ways or various ways in which you can experience it complement one another? They do. Yeah, don't limit yourself to just the one.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, unless there's a reason for it for you for a period of time, right?
It's incredible. You have so much to impart, and I mean, there are so many things I want to talk to you about, and I think I'd like to get you back on and we have a conversation about disclosure and currently what's happening. Like, just do a show on that. Would that be nice?
Definitely. I would very much love to. It's a message that I'm meant to get out. I've started writing articles on the subject of disclosure to help get people to where they can unlock their door in that idea. And I think it's hugely important because some people right now are trying to bring contact and the galactic reality to our 3D space, and there could be nothing more detrimental to us. It's we individually who expand out into the galactic space. It's not bringing the galactic space down into 3D. We already know what happens. I mean, we're already here in 3D. However, if you bring them in their form into our experience space, this is a war space. This would not be for a good reason, and it would not result well. it would result in our end.
This is going to be a good chat. So why don't in the next couple of weeks you specifically talk about that?
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love that, really, especially with you, because we'll open it
I
in
love that.
places.
Yeah, we open it up, and because there's so much awareness right now about it and the different things that the sightings and the scientists and everyone's just like listening and surmising. There's a lot of surmising out there of what is this, or
There is a
like
reason why governments cannot disclose, and this is why this is an actual service to us that they don't do it, and why it is that they're holding that space. They're holding 3D planetary level experience. The planetary level of experience will not change. It will always be the planetary level of experience for the next third graders that need it. Again, it's we who shift out into a larger territory. We leave the third grade classroom and go out into the next grade out. We go through a gradient shift. And it's important to discern the distinction of whether you're trying to bring an outside force into our 3D space, whether you yourself are expanding out. Again, that distinction clearly has to be seen in order to be put in effect in the beneficial way. There is no disclosure when we ourselves grow out. Galactic space is what it is. It has always been what it is, and therefore there's nothing to disclose. We, as a new arrival into galactic space, do need to cognize that we have arrived there. But again, there's no disclosure other than that. Disclosure in its natural format is an inner awakening process. We ourselves grow out, graduate, and go out into that new dimensional experience territory, again, which is galactic and not locked in on the planet, and not the other way around.
Save it. You got to save this, because this is good. I want to be full attention when you're talking about this.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I'm happy. Thank you.
Well, thank you for agreeing to come back for the chats. It's always magical talking to you.
Oh, same. And what you said about my voice, I can say the same thing back to you. Whenever I'm coming ungrounded, I go to you and your videos, and it does the same thing for me. So I know it's a good match, and I know we equally open one another, and together we can potentially open up a whole lot more others.
Beautiful. Oh, thank you so much. It's been wonderful to spend this time with you. So I'll see you in a couple of weeks.